Hello, beautiful souls. I am back this week. Last week I was really busy creating and doing all of the things, and the video that I wanted to create just wasn't seamlessly flowing. So I was just like, I'm going to leave it and just enjoy being the moment of creating my own product line, which is super exciting. Okay, so the video, or what I want to talk to you guys about this week, is fears and our stories, or the stories that we tell ourselves. So some of the recent teachings that I've been learning and delving deep into, and I've seen this a lot with my clients, I see this in my own life, I think everyone does this to a degree, is we experience something in life or an event, and instead of being able to just go into the experience kind of like an innocent child and feel it out, feel the emotions around it, and then move through it and understand like maybe whatever lessons or what have you experience is around it, and then let it go. A lot of the time we move into an event, and that event becomes our story, and that's what we carry with us through our entire lives. So an example of this is like maybe the person I am in love with, I feel rejected by him or hurt by him, and then all of the other encounters coming up with him, that rejection and that hurt comes forward. So I'm immediately like on guard, I'm immediately closed, maybe he does it again, and I experience this pattern happening. So now I take this pattern into my life, into my other relationships, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna get her, or he's gonna always do it again, instead of just being like open and honest with myself or open to the experience of whatever's happened. I automatically am shutting an aspect of myself down and telling myself like that's always going to happen, or that's going to happen again. This comes up with like a lot of people. So that's one example, definitely around love. Another example around love would be like maybe if someone cheated on you, you're often likely to wear that story. So you're going to take that and or wear that hurt around it because it hasn't necessarily been healed. And it's a lot of the time I find like I think we have these experiences and we wear them as badges. Like, this is what I've been through. But I don't feel like we need to do that. I feel like we just need to go through it and experience it and be open to, whatever we need to learn from it. But I don't feel like we need to wear it as a badge. Like if you, so the example of being cheated, like if someone cheated on you, then maybe you automatically go into every relationship after with this worry, like, is it going to happen again? And to me, as a healer, that tells me like there hasn't been the healing around it, or that person's not ready to let go of that story. And maybe that happens for, whatever reason. Maybe they need that story because something else is going to come about it later on. But I think the interesting thing is once you understand some of your fears and like what you're fearful of, and you help to lean into it, then you can identify with a different story. So this is what a lot of the native Hawaiian, a facet of the native Hawaiian shamanism is about. The practice of Huna is kind of along the lines of, instead of turning and like running from our fears or running from the pain of an experience or discomfort, we turn and we face it head on. Because a lot of the time in life as a human, like, we don't want to be hurting. We don't want pain. We don't want to hurt. We don't want to look at our scars. We don't want to look at our fears. We don't want any of it. We just want to like shut it away, lock it away, keep it in this closet, shove everything to this closet. But the beautiful thing is like when you just stop and you turn and you look at your fears that are coming up for you and you start acknowledging them and acknowledging that story, you start to feel more empowered about the decisions you make. And you realize like There are some fears that are maybe put in place for a benefit in your life later on, and that's like a completely different thing. But most of the fears and the stories that we tell ourselves, we don't really need. But what we do need to do is we need to face it, and we need to be okay with it, and we need to be okay with like experiencing the pain and looking at it and giving it love, giving ourselves compassion in those moments, and being able to shed a light. Because a lot of the time, those fears, pain, suffering, discomforts that we feel, we have perceived them and built them up in our minds as something extremely scary. So this fear has now become this giant monster in the room, like this huge Yeti, abominable snowman looking thing. But really, if I turn and I look at it and I shed some light on it and I do some healing with it, I recognize that within that fear, it's actually not an abominable snowman. It's not a Yeti. It's not going to come and get me. It's probably like this tiny little pink bunny that's like super cute and just wants a love and attention. So the moment when you sit and you look at some of these pains and these things that are coming up for you, you understand that they're not your story, but it is maybe an avenue of yourself that needs to be healed in that moment. And the more you can just sit and face it, the more it doesn't become this huge, painful, long, drawn out thing. It's maybe like a day of you, not being on your game, but you sitting and like feeling through this work and then not having to have that fear constantly come up for you. Like I see this with a lot of people, like the fear of being vulnerable. Well, sometimes like, what does that come from? It comes from like acceptance. It comes from like being judged. It comes from being rejected. It comes from being unloved. But the thing is like the avenue that we're missing is that connection with ourselves. And we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for, love, acceptance, blah, 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 blah. And the list goes on. But we really need to give that to ourselves. So the moment you stop running from that rejection or that fear or that pain that you may feel in those moments, the moment you acknowledge that you're being triggered and you stop because you feel like you're running, you just stop in that moment and you have some quiet time and you sit with that experience of what you're feeling, that pain, that fear. It becomes a beautiful thing. It becomes a moment where you do self-healing. It becomes a moment when you acknowledge that you're giving your inner power over to this emotion. You're giving it over to this fear of being rejected. But the thing is that's outside of yourself. And what you probably need to do is in that moment, lean into it a little bit more, because I think what will happen is you'll understand that you may perceive the fear of being rejected by someone or the being vulnerable with someone, but really in those moments of you filling your own cup and sending yourself self-love, which is another aspect of Huna, which is really beautiful, you understand that it's not really the fear of someone else hurting you. It's more or less like you're hurting yourself. It's your inner child that's hurting. So every time we have a pain, every time there's a fear, it comes from so many different avenues. Like it comes from ancestral healing, it comes from past life healing, it comes from this life, it comes from our pains, our events, our stories. But it also comes from our inner child that's wounded. So the fear of being vulnerable is you protecting and putting this hardened shell around yourself so you're not vulnerable. But then if you're not vulnerable, you can't experience life fully, and you can't experience love fully, and you can't experience relationships fully because you're not being your true self. You're not standing in your true power. So the moment when you feel yourself being triggered, instead of running, face it. Be like, what is triggering me right now? Why do I feel this way? Like, why do I want to run? Why are these fears coming up? And try to get to the bottom of them, because sometimes fears aren't bad. Fears are sometimes good. Sometimes when you're about to make a big step in your life and a big leap and it's good, all of this rush of fear comes over you, but it's not bad. It just means like it's pushing you outside of your comfort zone. Some of the best things happen on the other side of fear. But if you're constantly letting fear and the story of what happened to you 5, 6, 10 lifetimes ago get in your way, you're never, I shouldn't say never, but life isn't going to flow as easily as you think it should or it should. You're always going to keep yourself slightly safe, and you may not take those bigger leaps because you're giving your power over to fear when you need to have your power over your life. You need to have power over your emotions, and definitely not in like a dominated way, but a lot of the time like we give our power away to stories and fears and emotions and the stuff that happened to us, and we take it on as if it's us. Like if we've had a serious illness in our life, we take that on and we say like, well, I'm a survivor of this. Well, yeah, you are a survivor of that, but like it doesn't define who you are. It was an avenue, it was what you went through, but you continually holding on to the fact that you were a survivor of X puts you back in that space. It puts you back in that trauma. It puts you back in that frequency of having that. It was what you went through. It was an experience that you had. And that's a huge thing, is like we're here to collect experiences. We're here to be able to like move in and out of things and live our purpose and cultivate love and be in a space of love and compassion for those around us. But when you start living your experiences and holding on to those and those stories, you stop that flow of just being able to like go into it and be like, wow, that was an experience. Like, because in reality, you know, the cheating or being hurt by someone or the disease or, you know, whatever happened, it's neither good nor bad. It just is. Nothing in life is really good or bad. It just is. But we like to conceptualize things as good or bad, and we give those things charges. Whereas if you come from the mindset of moving into an experience and just seeing what it has for you or what it's like, then you're able to detach less from cultivating a story or a paradigm or a belief system around it. So instead of you always thinking like, I'm always going to get hurt, or no one's going to love me, or I'm not good enough, these are all stories that we tell ourselves. Or like, I'm never going to get the promotion, and so on and so on and so on. The moment you sit and you just face that and you shine some light on it and you give yourself compassion in those moments to just be or experience the emotion that was at that situation that you had, experience the emotion, like feel it in its totality, like get it out of your system. The moment you do that, you've saved space for yourself. You have connected with yourself on a completely different level. And in that moment, you can feel empowered and you can make the decision, am I ready to give this story up? Am I ready to put this baggage down? Do I still need to carry this story with me? And if the answer is yes, that's okay. That's okay. You might not be ready now, but soon, with some healing or whatnot, like you may be ready. But if you are, that's amazing. That's huge. And in that moment, you can put that story down and you can decide what's your new story. And I think that's the most empowering thing. When we stop giving our power to our fears and our emotions, we start living life and we start feeling joy and peace and bliss because we're not constantly tipping around or letting something take our energy that has no right to it. We, as a society, as a community, as the world, you know, as people, we need to remember who we are and that these things that are happening to us aren't, like, they're just happening. It's just an experience. And the more we step out of it and we don't play this, victim role, and we don't give it our power, is the more we embrace life. And it's the more we recognize that, I can move in and out of things, and I can cultivate things, and I can, like, I am my own person, and I have the power, and I have the authority over my emotions and my fears, and I choose whether I'm going to let them rule me or define me or hinder me in any way. And that is probably the most beautiful thing ever. Because if you can do that, if you can sit every time something comes up for you, and instead of bolting in the other direction, if you can just sit with it and just understand, like, okay, like, I see you. Like, I see you, fear. I see you, like, pink bunny. Like, you're cool. Like, and that step alone just helps you to acknowledge, like, an avenue of yourself, or like where you came from. That step alone is incredibly empowering, because the moment you just take that time for yourself, instead of bringing darkness to an area, like, you've shone light into it. And that's an incredibly beautiful thing. And then you take that extra step and say, like, okay, am I ready to put this down? Like, has this defined my life enough? Because I can guarantee, like, there are a lot of people walking around with really heavy stories of things that they are letting define them. And that's okay. Like, there's really no right or wrong. Like, that is okay. But I just want you to know, like, it's also okay for you to choose to let that go and to put that down. And you can shut the door on that. And that is a very empowering thing. The moment someone realizes that they can shut the door and just be good with something that was such a hindrance or a hurt for them, they can finally, take those steps to heal, and take those steps to be free, and bring more light and bring more joy into their life, and create a new story. So that was a lot. This process is not easy. This is not an easy process, but it's an ongoing process. And it's a process that I think will free a lot of people. Like, there's a lot of information out there about belief systems and paradigms and fears. And it's not like you don't have to face every single fear, but what you do need to do is, in the moment that you're feeling triggered, you do need to just stop and recognize, okay, why am I being triggered? What's going on for me? What is my body trying to tell me? Because sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, bad thing. And then you can lean into it, and you can decide, like, what you're wanting to do with it, or what new story you're going to create, because you don't necessarily have to keep carrying this baggage and this hurt with you. You can work to heal it. You can work to transition it. You can work to transform it. You can work to transmute it. There are so many different things that you can do with it, and it doesn't have to be a part of who you are. So that's my video for you. I'm sure I'll be talking more about it, because I just feel like it's really important, and it's probably harder to, like, conceptualize. It's been a lot of conversations that I've had with a lot of clients recently, because it's such a huge barrier, but it's really freeing the moment you decide to, like, make that switch, or it just, like, it connects differently in your brain. So then you start doing it and implementing the steps. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Please like, share, subscribe. I adore all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Much love. Bye, y'all.